I am going to play the audio that we always have to play whenever we start the show.
Of course.
Hi, and welcome to FrazlCast. Climb aboard the GNOME train.
Chugga, 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 woo!
Please make sure to keep your limbs and experimental instruments inside the train at all times. And now, on with the show.
A podcast by a Blizzard fan gnome about World of Warcraft and geeky stuff. I promise you, they do talk about the World of Warcraft. They just go off the rails sometimes.
Well, I'm Frazley, and today we are joined by the awesome Dracoris of LFR Podcast. Hey, my friend.
Hi, Frazley. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing really good. I'm definitely early this morning, and it's the fun of time zones. Like, I know that whenever I'm doing my Friday stuff with my bestie Spaz Weston, he's up early in the morning, and I'm like, how's your day going? And he's like, oh, morning, Fraz.
Spaz he's Australia time zones, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. There's so many different time zones amongst the community, aren't there? Anybody you're talking to, you don't really know what they're dealing with at the time you are, you know?
Exactly. Because, I think it's amazing that we've all been able to come together so much in Blizzard. I still would love to have the region locks gone, please.
Oh, me too. I would adore that. I've got 2 accounts, and honestly, I've got to decide between paying for 2 subs or just not being able to play with some of my friends. You know.
Oh, I know, because I thought about one time doing the 2 subs, but then also I am at the place where I have to also think. Do I ever want to get back into Final Fantasy 14? Because then that could take up another sub. So I mean, it's one I have to really balance. I've been getting into Guild Wars 2 thanks to Leo, thanks to Crescent Raven. They've been encouraging me both to get into Guild Wars 2, and I'm really enjoying it.
Really? Never played Guild Wars.
It's fun, and especially I'm currently on the free plan, and at some point I'll get the expansion because you get to some more stuff, but it's actually quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I'd play a subscription game until WoW came along. So
yes,
I think diving into another one is probably a little bit beyond my, just my time constraints, if nothing else.
And you know, somebody who probably never expected to be on a subscription is our friend Epic Insanity, because he's on a subscription for his amazing beard. Because I mean, to get a beard that beautiful, you've got to work at it. So, Epic Insanity, what time is it? I had it. It's supposed to be on this one, and it's not. Why is it not loaded on my sampler? Why is my sampler?
You wasted a perfectly good segue, and the sounder isn't ready. Come on, Fraz.
Oh, there it is.
It's time to go around the table.
Great idea. What have we been up to? That'll be a blooper at the end of the episode.
So I've got to compose myself a bit. That's great. What have I been up to? Well, this week, my biggest thing in WoW has been the fact that I got the Silver Hand armor finished off from Legion on my Paladin.
Nice!
Which is great, because I haven't been touching Shadowlands. I just haven't had time. It's been a bit of a manic week. We had a couple of pieces of bad news in our sort of personal lives this week, and it's just sort of it limits how much you're able to focus on playing, you know.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to do something low stress. So I went back and I did some old Legion content and finished off the Nightborn rep on my Paladin. And yeah, and that was good. Means my transmog isn't mismatched for the first time in 6 months.
Nice. And I have to say, that is an interesting quest, especially in Legion. I still remember getting all that ancient mana, and then with the ancient mana, you're like, come on, I just give you all this mana. Until I hated him the entire time. Till the end.
That little dude, yeah, the little roguey type guy who's like, well, I'll help you, but it's going to cost 400 ancient mana.
Yes.
And I'm looking, going, I've got 373.
Yes.
I don't have 400. I don't want to go all the way to the auction house. Come on.
And I hated it. And I called him an asshole and a bastard until the end.
Yeah, and then you feel bad for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, I spent the whole time hating you, and You were the one who saved us.
I'm just kind of sad that I wasn't able to loot his corpse and get the ancient mana back, to be honest. But
Oh my god.
I would say spoilers, but I think Legion's long enough ago now that I can get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will try to refrain from spoilers, especially on I'm working on the Covenant campaign for Frazley because 9.1 with flying. I want to get her up and ready to go. So there's some interesting stuff that I'm getting into right now in 9.1 and really enjoying it. I mean, I'm pretty enthralled with it. But outside of WoW, I've been playing Slime Rancher, and oh my god, this game is amazing. You are a rancher in space, in far out space, and it is so cool to move through, collect these slimes, and there are different slimes, like they're like tabby cat slimes, rock slimes, phosphorescent slimes, pink slimes, and you can collect styles from these, and it's funny to see the one of the funniest things that we've seen. Well, other than the fact that you collect, they're called plorts, and we call them plorps in our stream. And if plorps is number 2, we've come up with the idea that if they go to number 1, it's called pleeps. So make sure that you pleep and plorp.
Pleep and plop.
Well, some of the different slimes have food that they want, and the tabby cats especially want meat. I made a chicken coop. One, I put the chicken coop next to where the tabby cat slimes are. So every time I put chicken in there, you have all these tabby cat slimes in their corral, staring at it like on top of each other, oh. And then if you feed them the chickens, there's actual blood on their feet. It's so cute. It's like, wow. It is an amazing game. So if you have kids, or even if you were like me and a kid at heart, I think you would absolutely love it. It's really cute. So if you don't like cute stuff, probably not your cup of tea, but it is so much fun. I'm learning more and more stuff.
I'm gonna have to check that. Is that on PC or is that on something else?
A PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. And there's been a call for a long time for it being on Switch, but it's unfortunately not on Switch at this moment. But it is.
That's why my other half and the kids both play the Switch a lot, and it sounds like something they would love.
Oh yes, and I think it would be so perfect on the Switch. There are some cool games on Switch. I was watching Dr. Safista. She was playing Littlewood last night, and Littlewood's a game where you have to come through. Unlike other games where you're trying to save the world, you've already saved the world, but you lost your memory, so now you're trying to rebuild after saving the world. And I was having a great time hanging out in her stream last night, watching her play, but also watching this game. And that's $15 on Switch. So
oh wow!
I think they would enjoy it, and it was there's a lot of fun humor already. So I'll be getting into that.
Well, that's a really interesting concept. I'll check that out.
So the fact that you have kids, I'm gonna guess means that you're pretty experienced with gaming, and that
I mean, I was pretty experienced with gaming well before the kids came along, but yeah.
It's given you a lot of experience and a lot of things, and I want to know, how did you get into gaming?
Okay, so I mean, I've been gaming in the broader sense ever since I was the age my kids are now, which is 4 and 5. My older sisters were gamers, and so I mean, there was a Nintendo in the house before, longer than I can remember. So I mean, I've always played games. But generally, it's been console. Through pretty much my whole life up until 2017, 18. And I'd never picked up a PC game to that point in my life. And basically, I had a friend who got me reading the Warcraft novels. And she was using it as a gateway drug. She wanted me to play WoW. Yeah. And I was saying, look, I'm not going to do that. I've never played a PC game. I've never paid a subscription for a game. I'm not interested. I play my PlayStation. I'm quite happy with that, And she said, but you're a nerd and you love fantasy stuff and you love lore and you love just read these books. And so I did. And I fell in love with Azeroth, completely. But I still didn't have a PC. Other than at work. So I was I really kind of wanted to play at that point, but never took the plunge. And then I met my partner, and she was an avid WoW player already. And so that she kind of tipped me over the edge and got me doing that. And honestly, I have, having played 100% console games up until 2 years ago, I now play probably 10% console and 90% sitting playing WoW.
Isn't it amazing how that can like flip and switch? Sorry, pun intended.
Not sponsored.
Yeah, not sponsored. I mean, of course, Nintendo. If you want, I'm always available. But like FrazlCast, your new Nintendo Switch podcast. But no, like it is amazing how that flip and like you start out on console, and then at some point, if you get a PC, because it's an expense. There's a lot of things with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How you can get so many games much cheaper than you can on consoles, and like
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I obviously we're talking different currencies here, but in the UK, you're talking £50 or £60 for a new game on the PlayStation every single time. You know, whereas you look on Steam and you can get games for £10 or less. You know.
yeah, and like if you do the Humble Bundle, I'm not on that right now just due to like budgetary constraints, but you, for like $20 a month or in that range, you can get games every month. I mean, it's incredible what you can get. And I have to say, I think the one that has been amazing is Game Pass, how you can get so many things on Xbox and PC.
Yeah.
And how Microsoft is perfectly aligned to get people onto consoles. Then you can stay on consoles if you want to, or if you want to change, you can go to PC. How like a lot of your purchases now sync across
Absolutely,
platforms.
yeah. And even to a degree, Sony are even starting to change their mind on that. You know, they had a real hard and fast thing if they weren't going to allow cross-play on PlayStation titles for a long time. But I play Minecraft Dungeons with my partner, and we can play that on the PC. There's progression, so you know I can log in on the PC and be the same character with the same items as I am on the PlayStation, which is great.
That part is getting me excited to play Diablo 2, especially because Diablo 3 did not have cross progression. But the fact that Diablo 2 is going to have it across all platforms, I'm tempted now to pick it up on Switch, pick it up on PC, play some here, play some there. And if they ever do mobile, well, I mean, they are doing Diablo Immortal, but if they ever do Diablo 2 mobile, how cool would that be? Because
well, I mean, presumably, if they're implementing this for Diablo 2, surely they're going to do it for 4 as well, right?
I would hope so much, because that would be a huge opportunity, because that way, like Diablo 3, how many times have I played it on PS3, played it on PS4, played a little bit on the Xbox, played a little bit on Switch, played a little bit on PC, and I've got like all these characters all over the place, and like how I think I love just opening up wherever you want to play, being able to play it. It's still why I think Blizzard would be amazing for a cloud service for WoW, because imagine WoW anywhere at any time.
Absolutely, yeah. And I still think they're going to move towards that at some point. You know, with all the increased controller functionality that came out in the pre-patch for Shadowlands.
Yes.
Look at Des Mephisto managing to do was it a plus 13 or something he managed to do on with a controller.
Yes,
you know,
I know.
If you can do that these days, there's no reason why it can't be a thing.
And I think like I do know that the controller aspect was because of accessibility as well, that they want to make it the game be more accessible, because like a lot of the tools use controller inputs. But no, I think it would still be great to have stuff, because Final Fantasy 14, you can play it on a controller, and I think it is. If I remember who I was watching. Oh yeah, it was Ken Zero Splat. I might be saying the Twitch name wrong, but they're a member of Rainbow Arcade, and Ken was playing Final Fantasy 14, and Ken was saying that they prefer to do it on controller, because then it's a nice laid back experience. Whereas when you're on mouse and keyboard, you are hunched over. You have more keys, but I do love it when I can be on a controller, because even if I'm standing, I can still I feel much more laid back.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, even just, you know, when you just did it, they did the you said hunched over and your body shape changed. You know, it's true. You don't realize how much you hunch over at a keyboard, especially the more you do it, the more normal it feels. But actually, it's not normal, you know, and it's so much more relaxing sitting back on a sofa with a controller. It
is. Oh, and so from the once you got. I was trying to think of a pun and trying to controller in my puns here, and it wasn't quite working.
Control yourself, right?
Yes. So, when you got the PC, and that was about, you said 2017, 2018?
Yeah, something like that.
So, what was your first character when you got into the World of Warcraft?
It was a Night Elf Druid.
Nice.
who is still one of my mains now. I've got 2 potential mains now, and the Night Elf Druid was the first character I rolled. And I mean, I still absolutely adore that character. You know.
Yeah. Oh, and Night Elves still are amazing. Like I changed my Night Elf into a Cotiran because I love the Cotiran and I love like their art style and but yeah. Oh, not Night Elf that was my second character I rolled after my Dwarf Warrior.
Yeah. I think part of it is getting to start off in Darnassus as well. You know,
Yes.
I mean, it's just beautiful. If you want an introduction to that game, it's Darnassus. I mean, obviously not anymore, but you know, Darnassus was the introduction you would have wanted because it's just beautiful.
I'm gonna guess that Sylvanas was just angry that Night Elf's got the prettier starting zone, so that's why she burned the tree down.
I mean, honestly, there's the 2 nicest starting zones in the game for me are both the elf ones. You know, you've got that, and then you've got
Silverman,
the forest, Kel'Thalos.
Yes,
I get those 2 mixed up. Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
yes. I used to have to do mount runs and like especially for stats films, I would fly in and like flying over those trees. I know that they are older graphics, but it's still gorgeous.
It's still beautiful, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I rolled my Night Elf Druid, and I'd say I never looked back. But actually, I loved my Night Elf Druid right up until I started doing current content, and this was sort of 8.2. You know,
Yeah,
and I went into Najatar with high hopes for absolutely loving, you know, because I'm a massive lore nut, and I was really excited to go in and see Najatar. You know, I'd read the War of the Ancients, and I knew sort of vaguely that Najatar was Ashara's city that had gone underwater and all this, and I was desperate to see it, and so I stormed in there on like the first day of 8.2. Completely undergeared, and just got absolutely ruffle stomped by Naga over and over again to the point that I rage quit.
I can understand.
And, yeah, I rage quit, boosted a paladin, and went back in and did it on the paladin just because I was just too squishy. And I couldn't cope. So I'd love to say I rolled the Night Elf Druid and never looked back, but actually I found that wearing leather was a little bit too squishy for my liking.
Yeah, I mean. There are definitely times when leather is something to be desired, but sometimes in combat it's definitely not. So, what would you say is your play style in WoW?
Honestly, I am so focused on like the lore and the story that I barely have a play style because I have a few hours over the course of any given week. I have between maybe 2 and 10 hours to play.
Yeah.
And so I don't have time for a schedule to sort of raid or anything like that. I would love to, you know. I've recently joined a guild with Demitanov.
Oh, nice!
Because I would love to get in on that raiding team.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I'm just not there. You know, I haven't quite got the eye level or the time to get the eye level. But once I do, it's going to be great to be able to jump into that. But generally speaking, you know, I do the questing and I do the sort of world content that I can do. I do a lot of old content, just especially now that I've got the podcast. I do a lot of old content just to play through and pick up on things and little lore nuggets that I need, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, on any given day, I'm going to be either pottering through the Shadowlands content, trying to get my level up a bit, or doing some old content and trying to sort of glean a little bit more out of the lore than I already knew.
And I think right now, until we get some more character mechanics, definitely like it's so hard getting like caught up in because of how much anima that they require. And like I saw that tweet that was like how much anima you need to do all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't know.
I saw that. Yeah. I mean, someone said to me in my Discord, in the LFR Discord the other day, what do you do with your anima? Are you spending it on upgrades or are you hoarding it for 9.1? And my answer was, what anima? I haven't got any.
Yes, exactly. It's like I would store it if I had it or something like that, but
I would love to have enough anima that would be a decision I had to make.
Exactly. Oh, to have anima, to even have like for me, I don't even have a level 2 conservatory yet, or any of the stuff in my sanctum.
No, neither. I'm level 1 on pretty much everything, I think.
And that's just my main. I'm now working on an alt, getting her up to 60, and I'm like, oh, you got to do the same thing for her now that she's at high level, because
Yeah, I've got two at 60, the Paladin and the Druid, but I don't think either of them have got any upgrades to level 2 yet.
So, even though we don't have anima, I know you definitely have memories though, because memories, those you treasure and you can store for a lifetime. What is one of your favorite gaming memories?
One of my favorite gaming memories is actually so this is kind of odd, but one of my favorite gaming memories was the first group sort of content that I did in WoW, because I hadn't done a lot of group stuff at all. I'd played a lot on my own. I played a lot with my partner Lou, and she introduced me to a bunch of her friends who she sort of did content with back in the day, and they do a thing called Raiding Behind the Curve on a Friday and a Sunday. Ooh. Where they go and do old raids and try and get the achievements for them and what have you.
I love that.
It's really good. And the first time that I went along for that was just amazing, because I was going into these raids that I, from a lore perspective, I knew bits about, and I was really excited to see all these bosses and what have you. But it was kind of overwhelming coming as a new player and going, where do I start? What do I do? And having someone go, no, look, this is what we're doing. Today we're going to go to, I think it was Naxxramas they did the first time. And we went in and they just sort of went through and showed me all the bosses and showed me the mechanics, and that was great. And then the week after that, we did Ulduar. And I mean, Ulduar is just such an incredible raid with how big it is. And, and all the lore implications that come out of it as well. And I vividly remember standing at the top of the pit where Yogg-Saron is.
Yes.
And seeing Sarah standing there, and everyone's going, right, you have to blow her a kiss to get the achievement. And I'm like, what? And they're like, come on, blow her a kiss. And you can see in the chat thing, scrolling past so-and-so blows a kiss to Sarah, so-and-so blows a kiss. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So in terms of a noob moment, that was great. But it was just such an incredible, wholesome experience to get to do that with these people and have them show me the ropes and show me these things that, that they had done at current content 4 or 5 years ago and that I'd never done.
Yeah.
And at the end of it was just so nice. The feeling of kind of inclusion and inclusivity that came from that. The fact that I'd barely picked the game up a month ago, and these people were just sort of quite happily showing me all these things. It was amazing. And to be honest, that was probably the start of my experience with the WoW community.
And that's where it always pains me when I see people talk about their bad experiences with the WoW community, because there are definitely your toxic areas. I mean, I think r-WoW and the threads show like we still have some horrific areas. We still have racism that's still rampant in our community.
Of course. But
it is amazing to see that there are good pockets, and I'm working to create those good pockets. Hottie Chicken's creating those good pockets. You're creating those good pockets. Demi and Brico are creating those good pockets, the pockets where you are included for who you are and you're celebrated for who you are, and the fact that there are those places. I'm hoping that those pockets start becoming the norm, and the pockets that are toxicity get taken away.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm lucky in that, and I said this on, I don't know if you saw the interview with Third Faction, but I said there that I've been lucky in that my experience with the WoW community has been overwhelmingly positive. And the thing is that, sure, you occasionally have to explain to somebody, how to act like a normal human being. But actually, I don't think that's so much the WoW community as that is just the internet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You're always going to come across dickheads on the internet. It's just the way the world is. And hopefully there'll be less and less of them as time goes on, but you can't count on that. And the way around it, I find, anyway, is to surround yourself with positive people.
Absolutely.
And that's what I've done. I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. I've got a partner who I love and actually want to pay attention to. I've got a job that is full-time and then some. And actually, I don't have time to spend my leisure time with dickheads.
Yeah.
So I just don't. And actually, it's a fairly easy decision to make. You can get involved in toxicity online, and you can get involved in flame wars and rows on Twitter and what have you. Or you can just say, do you know what? The only time I'm going to step up and get involved in this shit is when it's something really bad or offensive and I feel like I need to take a stand. And when that happens, I will.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think you've seen that before on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not backwards and coming forwards. But at the same time, I'm not going to seek it out. I'm not going to spend every, I don't know, let's say if you're in a group that plays WoW together on a Saturday, I'm not going to play 2 hours, 3 hours a week with people who I don't like.
Yeah, no.
Or who don't treat me with respect. There's just no point,
I have been learning, especially this last year, to not worry about the people that truly don't care about me, and that don't care about other people too. Because like if there's a group I'm a part of, and I don't see that they have the values that I'm in. I mean, I think it's shown that I joined the Women of Warcraft, and as we went in, I found that the values were not aligning with what I was going for, and I was very, very, very concerned about the lack of diversity, and I was like, I cannot be in a group like this. I cannot put my name on this, and I left yesterday morning. But I mean, yeah, it's commit yourself to groups that are part of your values, and groups that are aware. And I don't know the easy answer for people to find groups, because that's one thing I wish I could say, because I've built my own groups and I've tried to join my own groups. I'm in some groups, but I'm also trying to build my own. So I would definitely say, if you're looking for a group, Jex has a guild. Jex from Goneus. There's a group for the Third Faction show. Hottie Chicken has a group. Yep. Cell Heals has a group. I have a group. Dracoris has a group. There are groups, and we will gladly bring you in, and we will gladly be there for you. It just,
and something I'd say on that as well, Frazley, is that if you're in a group or being surrounded by people and you're finding it toxic, if your online experience is such that you're one of these people who's saying, I've had enough of the WoW community, I'm going to go and play X, or I'm going to go and play Y, and if your reason is that you are not happy with the community, change your community.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, honestly, it sounds like a bigger deal than it is. Sometimes, you know, some people do that via a server transfer. You know, some people do that via changing guilds. Honestly, I would say, if there's people you listen to on a podcast, say, or streamers you follow, who you think, I want to be around more people like them, contact them, ask.
Yeah.
You know, say, most of us know people who know people. Most of us know groups and guilds and things like that we could put you in touch with. My show, LFR, we do a segment most weeks called LFG, where basically, if you are looking for a guild or a community or a group, get in touch with us. Let us know, and we will put your name out there.
That's awesome.
If you have a guild or a community or a group and you are looking for people, get in touch with us. Let us know. We will put that out there. That's something we want to do. You know, and we didn't do it in episode 3 because we didn't have any takers, but in episodes 1, 2, and 4 we did, and we have already got someone for episode 5. We are going to have at least one announcement an episode, as long as people want there to be one. And honestly, if you are looking for a guild or a group or a community or a Discord server, or even just people to hang out with, give me a shout. You know, on Twitter, we're at LFR Wildcast, and if you get in touch with us, and we will put your name on the show, we will shout you out there, and we'll try and find you a guild if that's what you want.
And I will say that it is very scary leaving a group that you think is great, and leaving a group, because I mean, at this point, I've actually done it a few times that I've left groups, especially in WoW, to try to find my group. And it is scary because you're like, wow. But I will also say the relief from that toxicity, the relief from being somewhere that doesn't feel right is way better than what you're leaving behind. And of course, you will probably not be friends with the people that in that other group. I mean, it's just a human thing. You may still be like, I've got friends from groups that I've left, but still, it's much harder. But the friends you meet will be even better. And I'm not just trying to say cliche. I've lived this experience, and it's the experience that I've been in. That's why our groups are open, and please reach out to either of us, Dracoris or I mean, and other people that we've mentioned. Reach out. I know that Dust Mephisto, I just saw, is working on a group for autistic individuals. I'm using identity first language on that, but yeah, Dust Mephisto is creating groups, and that there are groups that are being created that are working and striving to do good things, and it's a long battle. It's not gonna be perfect. The group's not gonna always have everything that you want, but sometimes that also means if there's something that's lacking in a group, you might be the one who can rise up as the leader for that. You can be like, hey, I feel like this group is missing this thing. and people can bring that in. And sometimes as a group leader, you never know. Someone will be like, "Hey, I want this Discord channel," or "I want this," and you never know what your suggestion can do to change a group.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really true. There are important conversations that sometimes need to be had, and what they need is either a place to have them or for someone to stand up and say, we need to have this conversation. And, that can be a case within groups and just generally across the community. But I think it's really, really important to have that message out there, the idea that it isn't the WoW community that's toxic. There are pockets of it, sure. But that's the internet. That's any community. I don't know if you've seen Frazley. I know it was a big thing in the UK, but I don't know how big it was in the US. There was a thing recently about a Zoom meeting from a parish council in the UK.
I heard about it. I did not understand all the context. I admit.
Yeah. So basically, it was just this Zoom meeting going absolutely sideways, and it was a bunch of people in there, probably between 40 and 70 years of age, who were probably not particularly technologically proficient, trying to have this town meeting over Zoom. And I mean, it was horrible. There was some horrible language used, and people weren't very nice to each other. It kind of came across and it was played for laughs in the media. But my point with it was that these are people who aren't internet users. These are people who aren't, obviously aren't part of the WoW community, and yet they were incredibly toxic to each other online. And that's because it's just people. Yeah. These people were saying things to each other over the internet that they would never have said to each other in person. And unfortunately, this year, this last year and a half, 2 years even, that we've been online more than usual. And I think there is going to be an element of some people forgetting how to behave. And that sounds ridiculous, but I think it's true. Yeah. And I think that the main thing is that we need to remember to behave nicely to each other, but also to kind of stop engaging in the conversations that aren't going that way. There is no point in talking every day to somebody who you don't like. No, there just isn't. Spend that time and energy more profitably on something else. It'll be better for your mental health, if nothing else.
And there are way more people who deserve your time than people that are not that will not treat you with respect. Mm-hmm. Now, in the time that you're not interacting with people, I think that a good thing to do is, like, if you're just by yourself, but you still want to get some inspiration, and you're you're listening to this podcast, or you listen to something else. I think podcasting is a great thing to help get you more perspectives and get you the ability to feel connected to people. Like, I feel so much connected to people that I'm listening to, even if I've never met them.
That's true.
So you run the podcast, and you just launched it, which up to now 4 episodes. You mentioned 5, so you're already ahead of it. So you run LFR Podcast. What is LFR Podcast for those who might not know?
I mean, I've got to say, Frazley, that I love you. I live for your segues. That was amazing. I knew what was coming there, so I was like, how is she going to get there? So I've got to give you props for that one, because that was circuitous, but it worked. Now, I can't go so far as to say I run the podcast, because my wonderful co-host Sarif, who I think is still in the Twitch chat, does all of the hard work. He does all of the editing. He sets up all of the technical side of things. I talk a lot and do the law and do the research on the WoW lore. So I wouldn't want to claim credit for running it. But yeah, I'm one of the co-hosts of LFR, Casual Warcraft Podcast. And essentially what we do is every episode, it's a bi-weekly podcast, so every 2 weeks we dive into an aspect of the world of Warcraft, the lore. So episode 1, we did Anduin Rin. Nice. And I tried to sum up Anduin's story up to Shadowlands.
You have to revisit it now, because what happened?
Well, we have in fact revisited it at the end of episode 4.
Okay, good.
But yes, so we did up to Shadowlands, and we stopped there specifically because at that point we'd already seen the Twisting Corridors cinematic, so we knew something big was going to happen with Anduin in this next pack, and we didn't want to tell half a story on that, so we cut it off at Shadowlands and said, we'll revisit this after the X pack kind of thing. But yes, we did Anduin Rin in episode 1. Episode 2, we did Thrall. Episode 3, we did Khadgar. And in episode 4, we've just done Alex Straza. And what we started with episode 4 is we are doing a poll on Twitter for each episode. So we're actually letting the community choose what topic we cover each week, which is great. We've had so many suggestions so far. And what we do is we take the community suggestions we've got, which we've got collated on Discord at the moment, and we put them into the poll on Twitter. So we pick 4 of them each week, and then the community chooses who we're going to do. And it's great. And we're not just going to do characters either. So we're planning on doing episodes on things like the First War.
Nice.
Like that, one of the leaders in our poll for the next episode is actually the Arakoa. And that I really want to do an episode on the crazy bird people. I do.
Yes. Oh,
and things like that.
I think the Arakoa, or however they do that.
Brought you a casserole. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm really excited for that, and it's just great. And one of the other things I do, because my partner Lou, although she's been playing Warcraft for God knows how many years now, I think she started in Wrath. She doesn't know much lore at all. She's one of these who clicks her way through the quests, and just brushes through it all. And so, which is hilarious when we level a character together, because I'm always lagging behind reading the quest text. But yeah, so what I do as well on each episode is I ask Lou what she knows about the topic before we start, and that makes it into the show. So for Alex Straza, for example, it was just big red dragon, bitching name, and that was it. So what I do is I try and sort of correct her misconceptions over the course of the episode. And the idea is that after you've listened to an episode of LFR, you should hopefully know a little bit about that person. There are a lot of lore podcasts out there, but I don't think there are any that kind of concisely try and sum someone up like that. So, like, for example, Morally Grey, which I love.
Oh, absolutely.
But the thing with Morally Grey is that they are covering everything from square one up to current day, and so it's not necessarily the best place if you want to find out about a current lore character. If you want to find out about Anduin, well, tough shit. He's not even been born yet. By the point they're up to, and they're 2 years in. And then there are wonderful shows like The Tauren and the Goblin.
Yes.
But they're much more like a long form exercise, with a lot more back and forth and a lot more discussion and deep diving and kind of an assumption that you already know something. So if they were to do an episode on Anduin, I imagine that it would look more like diving into what's going on with him now and where his arc might go and what they want to happen with him. And that's brilliant. But I think there are some casuals who would be put off by that, who will just look at it and go, well, I don't really even know who Anduin is. And that's who we're aiming our podcast at. And actually, we've had some amazing feedback already. Someone who's in our Discord now, actually, who I know she won't mind me saying this, our friend Gershom, she actually sent us a message after episode 1 saying that she always thought Anduin was a paladin. And that's kind of the sort of thing we want to correct. We want people to know who these characters are so they can enjoy the story more, And as I say, so far, touch wood, it seems to have been really, really well received.
And I have to say, I admire lore podcasts. I don't think I'm one that in any game would be a good lore podcast, because my grasp of lore, I'm always like, what's this? Or I'm always getting corrected in chat while I'm streaming, like, what's this? Yes. But I do love the different lores. And I've always been amazed that WoW, Elder Scrolls, there's different games that you can really see that they have a huge lore background. And I think it's amazing that there can be podcasts dedicated to lore, especially for WoW. That's incredible. The fact that like Blizzard Watch does their lore watch, and then they do their Blizzard Watch podcast, that they do 2 podcasts on stuff. Mike, a question I always have for people that do lore podcasts: how do you keep it all properly organized in your mind?
Okay, so for me, it's a really good question, because honestly, it is difficult, especially because of some of the things that have happened with retcons.
Yes.
And that's the thing I struggle with the most, because, as I said earlier, I read the novels before I ever picked up the game. And a lot of those novels were written a long time ago. Now, since then, things like Chronicles have come out, and Chronicles explicitly rewrites some of the stuff that happened in the novels. And it's really hard to know without going back and cross-referencing exactly what has been retconned and what hasn't. I remember when I started listening to Morally Grey, there was an episode where Jin was talking about something, and I messaged him on Discord and said, dude, I don't think that's right. And I sent him a screenshot from one of the books, and his response was, no, that's been retconned, Chronicles, because Jin is a guy who does his research very carefully.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I aspire to, because it's very, very difficult. And the only thing you can do, honestly, is just do the research. I don't think it's possible to keep it all straight in your head so that you just know, unless you're like the red shirt guy, Yes. I mean, I think that guy genuinely knows.
Yeah.
But for me, like one of the things about doing an episode based on a specific topic is that I can research the crap out of it before I do it. And sometimes things jump out at you when you do that. Like I reread Dawn of the Aspects in order to do the Alex Strasser episode. And Dawn of the Aspects is an amazing novel that deals with basically what happened with the dragon aspects when they were young. So before they were the dragon aspects. And it's great. It's a really beautiful piece of world building. But one of the things I noticed from that is the amount of times they mention that they really don't want any other dragons to do what the villain in that story did. And that they're hiding it from other dragons that all of this happened. And it's kind of in passing in the book, but then it's also mentioned in a questing game. And by the time I got around to doing the podcast, I've got this red neon light over my head going, do you know what? This is going to happen. At some point in a future expansion, we're going to have this storyline with cannibalistic dragon. It's absolutely going to happen. And I wouldn't have seen that if I hadn't gone through and reread the novel again, sort of side by side with like Wowpedia and all that sort of stuff. There's just so much hidden in these novels that they bring up later. Honestly, and I can't wait. There's more coming. There's this the Grimoire of the Shadowlands is coming out later this year that is going to explicitly retcon some of the stuff that's in Chronicles. It's a lot to keep straight.
And I think I'm going to probably guess you have to be in a mindset of not being defensive, like when things happen, being like, okay, I know what's going to happen here. That like I may get things wrong, and I gotta relearn like what I'm doing, and that like, okay.
Oh yeah. You've got to be open to corrections, both from the community and from Blizzard, because if they retcon something, potentially my episode 1 might go out the window, and that you've got to be aware that can happen.
Yeah.
Again, using Jim as an example, the first episode of Morally Grey sets out how the cosmos started. Now, we now know that is actually only from the Titans' point of view. So it's very possible that at some point in the future, we will find that those first couple of episodes of Morally Grey are now completely wrong. And that must be something really difficult to deal with. But it's the nature of these things. Blizzard's universe is ever changing and fluctuating, and I think that's a beautiful thing. But yeah, at some point, the thing with podcasting is that you are basically putting it on record, aren't you? And if that changes, you've got to be open to just admitting, well, this was how it was and it changed, or I got this wrong.
Yeah.
So far, I haven't had any corrections from anybody, but I'm sure it'll happen. I'm only human.
So, when did you decide that you wanted to start the podcast?
That was in late November, early December last year. We started in January, so it wasn't a big lead up. Basically, I was chatting with Sarith in Discord, and we were talking about sort of podcasts that we liked and things like that. And Sarith already does a podcast on Star Wars.
Oh, nice.
Star Wars lore. Yeah. So I knew he had the kind of technical know-how that I didn't have to do that side of it. And so we had a chat about it, and I said, if you can do the technical stuff, I'm happy to do the research and do all the legwork on that. And between the two of us, we could probably put a decent show out. And there was a little bit of back and forth trying to figure out times because of the time zones and
yes,
the logistics of all of that, which is why we decided to go bi-weekly.
And
so that if we did have to miss a recording date, it wouldn't mean missing an episode.
Exactly. And bi-weekly, unless you absolutely have the time and the ability to do it from somebody, I am a champion and a proponent. I'm a proponent of bi-weekly. I think that is one of my preferred ways to go.
Yeah. It makes it, especially with two hosts, I think if you're doing a podcast all by yourself, maybe it's easier to make the time. But when you've got to have an appointment, like a date for recording, you really need to try and stick to it, I think. And I think that's crucial. One of my friends said to me, the key to podcasting is consistency, and I think that's really true. I know for me, if I follow a podcast and I expect it to be launched on a certain day, I'm not going to be cross if it's not, but it might mean that I don't get to listen to it for another week.
Yeah.
and that's just a shame if that happens, you know. So that's what we want to try not to do to people. You know, we know that we've somehow, you know, thanks to the lovely people who've been retweeting everything we do, we've somehow managed to get a following already over 4 episodes, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But, you know, what we don't want to do is let any of these people down, you know.
Absolutely, and you want to be there for them. I felt bad moving my release schedule to be a week after recording, but I had to for my own schedule, and I'm trying to be like, hey, just I want to let you all know what's going on. Yeah, you want to be there in their life when they expect it.
Yeah, it's kind of an honor, you know, like you're thinking to yourself that there are people all over the world who are choosing to listen to what I have to say. You know,
yeah,
that's an honor and a privilege, and it's one that I don't want to take for granted.
Oh,
you know?
same. That I'm always amazed when I hear somebody who's listened to this show. I'm like, wow, it means so much.
I mean, we looked at the numbers from one of our. I know people say you shouldn't look at numbers too much, and I absolutely agree with that. But we had a look at where our listeners break down, where they come from, and what have you. And the fact that we've got listeners in Venezuela and the Philippines and things like that is just incredible to me.
Oh,
you
yes.
know, I don't know anybody who lives there. So,
I think the funniest one I ever had. The funniest one I ever had was a listener said that they were in Australia. They were driving down the road with the windows down. Well, there was a kangaroo on the side of the road, and the kangaroo turned her head as soon as they heard my voice come on the radio.
That's brilliant. It must have been your bouncy personality.
Oh, thank you. And
that's great. But yeah, it is amazing, and yeah, we're just really enjoying the ride at the moment. We've launched our Discord channel, which at the moment has, I think, 5 other podcasters in there apart from ourselves, which is incredible, you know. And that's the other thing is like the support that we've had from the community since we started, not just from our listeners, but from, you know, the people who we listen to, you know, people like yourself and like Ali and Jin and, you know, and Dimitanov. It is amazing when, you know, we put an episode out there and then we see that it's been liked and retweeted by people who we've been listening to for over a year.
Yeah,
you know, that's amazing. And yeah, we're just enjoying every second of it, to be honest, and especially now that we're doing the Twitter polls, the engagement that we're getting is great. I mean, the current vote at the moment is between Jaina, Varian, the Arakoa, and Garona. So if you have an opinion on any of those, please feel free to go in and hit us up on the Twitter poll.
I mean, I like all those, but I think I want my Garona. But and
brilliant.
It's a song I love listening to when I'm in the car because you know life is a highway and you never know where you're gonna go, and I want to ride that. I want to ride it all night long. But sometimes in life you get obstacles, especially on your dreams. What's an obstacle in podcasting that you've had to overcome?
Honestly, the biggest obstacle in podcasting for me has been it's knowing that people want to listen.
Yeah,
you know, and it's helping with every episode because of the amount of listens we're getting and the people who are coming in and giving us the amazing feedback. Gives me the confidence to keep doing it. But I mean, when we did the first episode, I mean, you'll hear if you go back and listen to episode 1 compared to episode 4. Honestly, I think I sound terrified for the first 10 minutes.
I know the feeling.
I think that's completely understandable. And I think I've recovered from that to a large extent. But part of that has been due to help, again, from people like yourself, you know, having me on the show today. And Demi and Bricko had me on. I recorded for 3.5 hours with them last week. And before that, Sil, again, I think was in the Twitch chat earlier.
Yes.
And Whispers of War, you know, she had me on a week after we did episode 1, actually. And that really helped me get some of the jitters off, you know. But that was part of it. I think the biggest obstacle for me has been getting used to putting my voice out there.
Yes.
And because there's something very different in podcasting to anything else. Like, I mean, I'm a lawyer. That's what I do day in, day out. I speak to people on the phone or over Twitch or in person. Not Twitch, Zoom and Microsoft Teams. You know, I do court hearings. I speak to judges, and that doesn't make me as nervous as podcasting did. In that first episode, it's a different feeling.
It is, especially because you are being listened to by people that you don't know. You can't hear their cues. You don't know where they're listening to you. The words stay forever. That was one of my my fears was that I would say the wrong thing. And
Absolutely.
I've learned now if I say the wrong thing, I own up to it. I take action on when I say the wrong things, and I've said the wrong thing on this podcast before. I own up to those, and it's one of those. It is definitely an obstacle. And are you now past not liking your voice, or is that still something you're struggling with?
No, I think I'm okay. It wasn't
Okay.
even necessarily my voice in terms of the way my actual voice sounds. It was more just the idea of putting myself out there like that. You know, it's the public. It's almost the public speaking side of it, but not quite that, because again, I've spoken in front of judges, I've spoken in courtrooms. Public speaking has never bothered me particularly. I think it's because it's public speaking on a topic that, as much as I love Warcraft, you know, it's not my professional field.
Yeah.
You know, when I speak about the law, that's something I've been studying for 13, 15 years and that I know inside out. And actually, if I'm corrected on that, well, I probably don't deserve to be getting paid. Whereas with this is something that, you know, it's a hobby essentially, and it's something that a lot of other people love, and you don't want to get it wrong for them or for yourself. And
I think it's one of those that, like, there are people that don't always want to acknowledge that, hey, you might not know everything that you're there. And you make a good point that, like, you don't make the money right now. You can, like, I'm amazed that my streams and podcasts are moving to the place where they are helping me right now pay off things like my hormone replacement therapy, that they are moving to be monetizable, and that helps me devote more time to it. But still, yeah, that you can devote even more time to your law profession, because it's going to bring you money, and you're doing this as a passion project. You're doing this as a labor of love.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
You want to give it all, but you sometimes have to be like, I also have a life I need to do to pay the bills, and I come here. And I think that's one thing that we forget about most content creators. The ones who make it, and I love the ones who make it, the ones who can live off what they do. I want to be there. That's one of my goals. But I think we got to remember that sometimes a lot of us are doing this in our spare time and the time
because we want to, you know.
Yeah, we are giving up binging the latest thing of, like, Bridgetown on Netflix, or we're giving up binging the latest season of Discovery, or we fit it in between catching episodes of WandaVision. I mean, we're doing this in times that otherwise we would be doing leisure time. So we are doing our best, but sometimes, yeah, it can be hard.
Absolutely. And, you know, the other thing with all of that, I mean, you've seen the conversation that went around on Twitter and that was discussed on, I think, Realm Maintenance recently about the "What Have You Done This Week" segments on podcasts.
Yeah.
You've seen that conversation, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And the original tweet that sparked it all, that said, this trend of what have the hosts been up to this week on amateur podcasts. And I mean, that hurt a little bit.
It does.
To be honest.
I still think, I think it was Spencer Downey. I thank Spencer Downey for, I one time called podcasting a hobby, and Spencer Downey of the Starting Zone, amazing podcast, by the way, amazing podcast for mechanics and stuff like that. They work their asses off every week, and I admire them. He told me, don't think of it as a hobby. Think of it as a career, because it may not be a career right now, but it can be. And he said, don't think of other people's podcasts as hobbies, because you never know what they're doing to make it go. I work 2 jobs. I'm adding a 3rd one, but I count this as actually a 4th job. So I'm working. I count it as a 4th job that I'm working.
No, it's true. And for what it's worth, I didn't mean any offense when I referred to it as a hobby.
Oh no, not at all.
For me, you know, I'm 4 episodes in.
Yeah.
And actually, at the moment, you know, I've spent a grand total of 4 hours ish on the mic for our podcast, you know, and I have spent probably 4 times that researching. But, you know, that's no different to the amount of time I would spend, for example, learning a new board game or something, you know. So at the moment, for me, it hasn't ticked over to the point where it feels like that kind of endeavor yet. I absolutely, you know, touch wood, hopefully we'll still be going in a year or 2, and it will start to feel like that. But at the moment, it doesn't. But what really does hurt is when you read a comment like the one that I mentioned, the thing about amateur podcasts, because I looked at it and I thought, you know what? actually the vast majority of podcasts do this, and they do it for a very good reason.
Yeah.
Your listeners, generally speaking, do want to know who you are and what you do and what you've been up to that week. Those sort of parasocial relationships can be very important.
Absolutely.
And I believe that it was the right thing to do to have those segments. However, I have seen since that conversation and since the episode of Realm Maintenance where it was discussed, I've seen a number of podcasters who I really like and respect talk to their communities and say, should I remove this segment from my podcast?
I'm one of those.
I know you are, yeah. And the vast majority of people, their communities have come back and said, no, leave it in. Or, and this is what I saw when Ali asked the question, no, leave it in. If that's what you want to do, it's your podcast. Do what you want to do. And actually, do you know what? That's the truth, is it's your podcast.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. And actually, the phrase amateur, I think, was really hurtful in that comment, because myself, I'm absolutely an amateur. I haven't monetized the podcast in any way, shape or form. Sarith does all the editing. I'm just talking about something I like. But people like yourself, people like Ali, people like Jin, people like Ro, you guys are all making money from your podcasts. Or at the very least, if you're not, they've got Patreon and things like that, which means that there is money coming in.
Yeah.
So even if all it's doing is offsetting some of the costs of producing the podcast, if it is bringing in money in some way, shape or form, it is not amateur. And I just thought that was a really harsh thing to say.
Absolutely.
And it seems to have really knocked the confidence of a lot of very experienced podcasters. And so I look at that and I think when that comment came out, it hit me really hard. And the reason it hit me really hard is because I know the person who made the comment originally. And I know that they'd listened to our podcast half an hour before.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was really hurtful, actually.
Yeah.
And so I took it to heart quite a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of hard to get past that, to be honest. And then I saw the fact that it was knocking the confidence of people like yourself and Ali, and that Ro had considered it important enough to discuss on Realm Maintenance. And I thought, you know what? If it's knocking people who've been doing it for that long, actually, I don't need to feel bad about the fact that it pissed me off.
Yeah.
So we made the decision, and what we did in episode 2 was we basically said at the start, we're only going to talk about our weeks if we think we've got something worth mentioning. Other than that, we're just going to get on with the show. But please let us know what you think. That was the approach we've taken since then. And actually, we'll drop in the odd sentence here or there, but we've dropped it as a segment. And actually, the reason we did that, to be honest, was because I didn't really feel up to dealing with that criticism.
Yeah.
So early on in a podcasting career, as it were. But yeah, so I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was worth raising while I was talking to you, because I knew that you'd recently had a Twitter thing about it as well.
And the poll came back that people would not be upset if I dropped it, but there are people that said that they would be, and there were enough of those. Even one person saying yes, that they would care. I'm not going to drop it because I also care. Mm-hmm. And what I did instead, and there are also some great replies to it. So I thank you all for your replies on those. That I hope I replied to all those, but I did read all of those. What I did is I changed the around the segment to be a highlight, because I know there are times it can go on, and I know I've been the one that's made it ramble on. So now I'm like, okay, what's a major highlight of your week? And that at least gets it going further, because I'm also thinking like editing time and show time.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing. It's not that it wasn't a valid conversation to have. It is. It's absolutely a valid thing to put out into the world. Why is everyone doing this on their podcasts? But there are ways of doing it, I think.
Yes, and I think one thing I want to encourage you, because I know you call yourself an amateur. I want to encourage you to drop that mindset, and anybody in a creative profession and an outlet, not because saying profession means that you've got credentials or something like that, or or at least, but anyone who does a creative outlet, please don't think of yourself as an amateur. Don't think of it as a hobby, because you never know. I still cannot believe that already what I've done has grown so much, and that's not trying to be flexing more. I'm trying to be
true. Yeah.
And it's one of those that I've always set up to be the best I can, and I want to encourage you, because I hear you want that. Hopefully you're here within a year. I want to encourage you to be here in a year. I want to encourage you to, no matter what, make it happen, because there are days that I've wanted to stop this show, stop the streams. And I mean, more because it gets to my head, it gets to my confidence. And I think that if you set out in the right mindset and you set out yourself that I'm going to do this, it'll help push you on those days where it is incredibly hard. The days you're like, wow, why am I doing this?
Yeah, no, I get that, and I think Sarith has those moments more than I do because bless his cotton socks, he has to get up and record with me at 8:00 in the morning.
Yes,
but yeah, I do get it, and you are right, and that is something that I will think on. So thank you.
Well, as we close out, I want to ask, because I sometimes forget to ask this about different people that do podcasting, and you've recently started, so I think this is a perfect time just to ask, what mic do you use?
Honestly, I'm just using a headset mic. I couldn't even tell you what it's called.
It sounds good.
Yeah, it does. Honestly, again, not trying to flex, but it is. It's a good mic, and I at some point am going to upgrade it to something. I've had a suggestion from Jin in the Morally Great Discord as to what to use, and I am at some point going to do that. But to be honest, the quality has been good enough so far that I haven't felt the need. It's kind of, there are other things that I will put the money on first before I upgrade my setup, I think. I know Sarith uses a Blue Yeti.
Yeah. Oh, and those are good. They're not my favorite mic, I'll admit, for especially because of my tastes, but those do sound good and can be set up very well. It's very controversial, my opinion on Blue Yeti. Sometimes people think that I hate them. I don't hate them. I just have edited enough Blue Yetis from multiple people that I prefer. I love it when your area reduces the echo. It helps me a lot.
Yeah. That makes sense. I've done a lot of research on the subject of mics, and actually I was fully expecting to have to upgrade after episode 1 because I thought my sound quality wasn't going to be good enough, just because everyone says don't use headset mics. But honestly, it's come through clear as a bell on all the shows I've done so far.
What do you record your how do you record your show?
At the moment, we use Zencaster.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, but we are considering doing it a few different ways because we've seen people have problems with Zencaster dropping out and what have you. And we didn't particularly like the upgraded Zencaster interface because they've changed it in like the last fortnight or so. So I think what we're planning on doing for the next episode is recording our own audios via Audacity, and then Sarith will merge them after the fact.
And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Squadcast. I if Zencaster works, great, but I have to say I've been using Squadcast since October of 2018, and I am a huge fan of them. So
I've been on Squadcast when I was on with Sil as well. I think she uses Squadcast, and yeah, so far, touch wood, I haven't had any problems with any of the methods I've been recorded on. I did a show with Demi and Bricko last week, and we recorded via Discord, and that actually went pretty well, or it seemed to.
And then, oops, edit this out. I was opening up something. At my show notes. This is what do you use for editing?
Audacity, I believe. Although again, I don't do it. Sarith does all the editing. He literally, if it's remotely technical or difficult on our show, Sarith handles it, and I'm forever grateful for him. Like I need to learn to do it at some point so I can pull my weight a bit better. But in the future, we kind of want to mix it up a bit so that for some episodes, maybe I'll do the technical stuff and he'll be able to do the research and the lore section. But for now, he's doing the editing and the setting up of the recording and all of that, and I do the research and the show notes and the main lore section.
And you might have touched on it earlier, because with the editing, so Sarith does the editing, but you still got to bring yourself to the show, and you got to bring yourself into doing all this stuff. How do you get past the voice in your head? You might have touched on it, but I like asking it again.
We did touch on it earlier, but you're right. And honestly, I think for episode 1, getting past the voice in my head was really difficult. And it was just an effort of sort of concerted willpower, to be honest, with the added bonus of not wanting to let Sarith down. and not wanting to let Twitter down. I mean, we made a conscious decision. We set up the Twitter account well before the podcast launched, and before episode 1, we already had like 176 followers on Twitter.
Nice.
Yeah, because I'd put the work in on social media. I'd gone out and I'd followed people and spoken to people and tried to big us up, and I'd made custom GIFs and things like that, and tried to engage with everybody. So everyone knew we were recording on X date. It was like, this Friday we are recording episode 1 of LFR. It's going to be edited that day. It's going to be out the next day. And we had told everybody this, and we committed to it. And I did that for a reason. So then I couldn't chicken out of it.
Yeah.
So then episode 1 was like, well, you've got to do it. Come on, let's get in and do this. And because we don't give ourselves a lot of time, because of the way the schedules work out, Sarith drops his little girl off at daycare, and then within about an hour and 10 minutes of that, I have to go and pick my kids up from school. So we have that tiny window to record in. So there's not really any time to sort of talk yourself out of it. You've just got to go in and do it. And we did. And episode 1, honestly, was so well received that by the time episode 2 came around, I was desperate to get in front of the mic because I really wanted to make another show for these people. And that's only grown. You know, when we sat down for episode 4, I was there waiting for Sarith to log in because he'd taken his little girl to daycare. And I was tapping my feet. I could hear myself tapping my feet because I wanted to get going and get started, because I'd written these show notes and I wanted to get them out there into the world.
Yes.
You know? And honestly, I was like a little mini Frazley. I was so excited. I was bouncing. And that's kind of how I feel about it now. So the nerves are really starting to go. And that little voice in my head, honestly, I just tell him to shut up. And that's the end of it. I mean, it comes up sometimes. Honestly, for me, it's more the voice of laziness. It's more the voice in the week that says, you don't have to finish the show notes tonight. You can do it tomorrow.
Oh, I hate that voice.
And the problem is these show notes take a lot of work because there's a lot of research. And sometimes, you know, it's not like you can just copy and paste the whole of Wellpedia and call it a day. You know, that's not going to be any fun for anybody. And sometimes you sit down after a hard day at work and you think, right, I know I need to do these show notes, but you're not in the right frame of mind. And you can't find the jokes to add in there, and you can't find the little bits that make it feel like you. And that's the part that I really struggle to power through sometimes. But I had an experience with the last episode where I actually didn't finish the show notes until about an hour before we recorded the show. And I felt so bad because poor Sarith hadn't had a chance to see them. He just had to basically record blind with the show notes in front of him. And I felt so bad about that, but I'm not going to let it happen again. So that's the other thing, is it's the little voice that counters that says, but if you don't do it, you'll let everybody down.
Yep. I know those voices so well that there have been weeks that I've not gotten these show notes out till the night before. And I feel bad because I'm like, I keep thinking, okay, I'll get this tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes Wednesday and you're recording on Thursday. There has been one time it's been like, it's Thursday. I'm like, we're recording tonight. And I knew, especially with this one being recorded in the morning on Thursday, that I really needed to make sure that I got it out way sooner, because I can't be editing the stuff Thursday afternoon for today, because otherwise we would not have any show notes while we're editing.
Yeah, well, it seems to have worked out okay.
And I have to say that, like, today has been such a great time. I will definitely have to bring you back on. Bi-weekly makes it harder for me to bring back guests sometimes, but I have to say I have had such a great time, and I think definitely listeners would, and I know that our listeners will love to listen to you on LFR. Where can they find you across the interwebs?
Yet another brilliant segue, Frazley. So for me, I'm on Twitter at Smiting Titan. Yes, some of you who are into other video games might realize that was originally a Destiny handle.
Oh, yes!
Yeah, I played a lot of Destiny back in the day. My co-host is at Sarith. You should go follow him too. The podcast is at LFR Wellcast. And if you want to shoot us an email instead, if you don't have Twitter, that's lfrwellpod@gmail.com.
And I mean, I got to say, hearing that you are originally from Destiny, I was watching somebody play Destiny in the last couple of days. It was, I know, Jess, go _ JG on Twitch, and she was playing Destiny, and I was like, I gotta download this. So I've actually downloaded the free-to-play version of it, because you never know, it could be in my Destiny to play that game again.
Excellent pun. Nice.
I will end that there. We're still live on Twitch, though I am going to figure out I'm gonna look for somebody to raid at some point because I know you got stuff to do and I got stuff to do. But thank you so much. Oh, that was an absolute